and welcome to the Grit Factor Coffee Break. This is the very first, and I've been excited about this for a long time because I've been following Melissa ever since I ran across her, I think on Twitter originally, and her story is amazing. And I could tell immediately that she was somebody that I wanted to know more about. Fortunately, this coincides really well with the release of her book, which is coming out, or actually it sounds like there are some early copies already out. She's going to tell us about that as well. But welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here, so thank you.
Oh, it's great to have you. Thank you. Well, we're focusing on grit, and so you came immediately to mind as the very first person we should have on this coffee break. But I'd love you to tell everybody a little bit about your story. And I know you're another Army veteran. You're a three-time world champion Paralympian. You're a mom of two completely adorable little kids. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your story, about how you, maybe just briefly how you grew up and how you ended up in the Army, and then a little bit about your journey to where you are today.
Yeah, so I feel like I was born a patriot. So I've always kind of loved our country, loved the red, the white, and the blue, loved the flag. And as I grew up and, saw military personnel with that flag patch on their shoulder, I always wanted to be in the military and kind of give back. So I made my way out to Colorado for college. I joined ROTC and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army when I graduated in 2002. I was sent over to Iraq about a year and a half later as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And 3 weeks into my deployment, the vehicle I was in was struck by a roadside bomb, which, to make a long story short, resulted in the loss of my left leg above the knee. And, I went from Iraq through Germany to Walter Reed Army Medical Center, where I did the bulk of my rehab there. And it's at Walter Reed where I looked around and I saw other soldiers that were missing so much more than I was. And, I really accepted the loss of my leg really early on and kind of realized that I was one of the lucky ones and wanted to kind of see what I could do with my life from there on out.
Wow. So back in Colorado, no, first of all, where did you grow up?
So I grew up kind of in Georgia, Minnesota, ended up in college out in Colorado. So not a military family, but I feel like we moved around a good amount when I was younger.
Yeah, fair enough. And then what was your branch when you were commissioned in the Army?
So I was Transportation Corps. So my job, so basically leading a whole bunch of vehicles from one point to the next. I was also a platoon leader, so in charge of 20 soldiers that I really became like my family.
Right. Oh, for sure. And that's an important responsibility, especially when you're deploying, right?
Yes.
Kind of leadership. Yeah. What can you talk us through? And I imagine this is difficult, but walk us through the experience of maybe what it's like to be in a convoy on a deployment like this when we're at war, and what you remember from that explosion.
Yeah, I talked about it, many times. So no, I'm happy to talk about it. So a convoy is basically a whole bunch of vehicles from one point to the next. And you think about the military and the Army as like this huge production, and everyone kind of has like their little job, and it all kind of adds up to work together, if that makes sense. So I was logistics. So we brought, fuel, food, ammunition to other soldiers kind of on the battlefield. And basically I woke up in the morning, we had a briefing on what our mission was going to be that day. So it was April 13th, 2004. We were going kind of into central Baghdad to deliver some supplies, and we you're kind of briefed on, the dangers that may have happened the day before, if there were any casualties, what you should kind of look out for. So I got into my vehicle, which was it was a Humvee, and it was early on in the war. We didn't really have all the equipment we needed, meaning that we had no doors on my vehicle. There wasn't armor on the vehicle, but you didn't really think twice about it because you have a mission to do and you do it regardless of what you had. And we took off out of our base, and about 10 minutes into the ride, we went under this bridge, and there was just this boom, like this deafening boom, and black smokes everywhere, the smell of metal, and the windshields crashed in, our vehicle swerving, and we ended up crashing kind of into this Iraqi woman's house, and everyone else in my vehicle, so 4 other soldiers, kind of got out. And you're trained to do that, to get out. You surround the vehicle, point your weapon out, and kind of see like what the situation is like.
Right.
I started to do that and realized pretty quickly that something was wrong. There was a lot of blood. So lucky for me, there was a combat medic 2 vehicles back. He realized I was injured. He rushed up, pulled me out of the vehicle by my flak vest, my bulletproof vest, and he laid me there in the sands of Iraq, really saving my life. I mean, I was losing a lot of blood. He started a tourniquet. I was awake through all of it, and they called a medevac helicopter that ended up not really, it didn't actually go through, so the helicopter never came. So I was put in the back of this big vehicle, driven to the nearest aid station, flown to the emergency hospital in Baghdad, rushed into a life-saving surgery. So kind of all these, things kind of added up like one after the next. But I mean, they got me into surgery on time. I was told there wasn't a lot of time left because I was losing a lot of blood. But it's kind of started that new chapter of my life.
And what did you, when the explosion happened and everything started to unfold, I imagine that's very quick, actually. What did you feel? What did you feel physically and emotionally?
Nothing. I think it's such a shock to the system. Like it's like, I had my leg, and it was severed immediately. It was gone, but your body doesn't really realize it right away. So it felt like, it was like on fire, I would say, but it wasn't really extreme pain until the medic put the tourniquet on. And it turns out I had fractured my femur as well. He put the tourniquet right where the fracture was, unknowing. I mean, he didn't care. He had to do what he did. He had to save my life and stop the bleeding. So it didn't matter if it was fractured or not. So that's really when the real pain started, is when that tourniquet went on. And also the realization that, things probably weren't as good as I imagined they were in my head, just because you never think something like this is going to happen to you. It's a possibility, but so kind of laying there thinking about, like maybe I broke my leg, or maybe, something else, but just, it's just kind of crazy looking back to think about how quickly it all happened.
And how old were you when this happened?
24.
24. My gosh. Wow. So I know I've read other stories about people who have had maybe similar accidents, even military, and sometimes it's a hard thing to accept. But you said you were able to accept this new reality, you thought, relatively quickly.
Yeah, so I've always had a very positive attitude. My parents are wonderful. I grew up with a wonderful family, wonderful parents, and kind of always had these big dreams, and had this positive attitude. My dog's going to join in the back probably.
Excellent. That's the best.
That's the best. But being at Walter Reed at that, Army Medical Center, and, if I ever had like a down moment, all I had to do was look around, and there were other soldiers who were missing 2 limbs, 3 limbs, sometimes 4 limbs. They had traumatic brain injuries. They lost their eyesight. And if I ever had a bad moment, all I had to do was look around. And I mean, I couldn't feel sorry for myself. So it really put things in perspective. And help me, early on accept the loss and choose to move on with it.
Right. No, that is very much an important ability to be able to do something like that, right?
Yeah,
especially in something that's so significant. Wow.
Yeah.
What had those early dreams been that your parents had supported?
So I was a big gymnast when I was younger. I think when I say that, so I was a big gymnast. Gymnastics was my life. I dreamt of going to the Olympics, and I feel like I always kind of set these kind of athletic goals, or I think the best part about what my parents did for me and what I hope to do for my own children is they never told me that any dream I had was crazy. They never, when I'm 10 years old and I say, hey, I want to be an Olympian, they're like, oh, in gymnastics, or not. They weren't like, oh, you can't do that, or that's not going to happen. They just kind of said, all right, well, let's see what we can do to make it happen. Or if I wanted, like, nothing was ever crazy to them, which made me feel like that I had their support the whole way. And I think that just kind of helped me realize at a young age that, you may have these dreams, and it's okay to dream big, and you go for them. And if they don't turn out, which they never all turn out, that'd be, I don't think anyone could say that their life has been perfect.
Sure.
But you learn something along the way, and then you choose a new dream. And my parents are always there to kind of help me do that. So I just think, they just had so much belief in me, and I just hope that I can give that to my own kids as well.
One of the things that we talk about, both in the Grit Factor as well as the Grit Institute, is how important it is to have your team and to have various parts of that team. But it sounds to me like you had a very solid foundation, which is really wonderful.
Yes. And, and I can't stress enough, you talk about team. I mean, for me, the importance of team in my entire life, I mean, the military teamwork is like resonates in everything we do.
Yes.
In athletics, I mean, it's all about a team. I mean, right now we're going through this unprecedented time. It's even more important than ever to have your team and those people that you can talk to and rely on and lean on. And I mean, team is everything.
Absolutely. No, that's so good. So you're at Walter Reed and you are realizing that things are going to change significantly. How do you figure out how to define what that looks like and move forward?
Yeah, it's really all about trying to find that new normal. I mean, it wasn't like my leg is going to go back. It's not. So accepting it and trying to figure out what I can still do with it.
Right.
And I think I keep talking about Walter Reed, but it was this amazing place to do rehab because you had these other soldiers. They were just wounded. That camaraderie. You had organizations that their mission was to want you to get out of your hospital room and get out doing things that you never thought you'd do with one leg, much less with two sometimes. So
Right.
Kind of taking those opportunities as it came. I learned how to ski on one leg. I did the New York City Marathon on a bike that I powered with my arms. And that kind of really gave me hope that I could still be independent, that I could still be an athlete, which I would kind of lay in my hospital bed and wonder, could I still be an athlete again? And then
Right.
learning about the US Paralympics and how that, was this incredible event that I could, represent a country. I defended over in Iraq, and this dream of being an Olympian when I was younger, it kind of like came full circle and I had a second chance. So, I actually think a lot of my time and my rehab was spent dreaming of athletics and then kind of realizing that I could still be an athlete again.
Right. No, that's amazing. And what I love about that too is, and thinking about this time that we're in when things are uncertain, you were certainly in a place where it wasn't that you had that long-term goal because you didn't know, right? Things were very uncertain. And I think a lot of people are finding themselves in that place right now where, geez, how do we move towards a long-term goal when we don't know what next month looks like, or we don't know what next quarter looks like? And I love how you're describing that you are finding things that were connected to a core purpose, maybe of yours, and some core values, and continuing to find intermediate goals that would lead you down a path.
I think you have to. And I think you asked, so, I mean, yes, we are all going through this, pandemic. I think before this happened, like, pandemic is written in our insurance contract. Didn't even know what a pandemic is. And like, now we're living in it. So it's like these things that come your way that, you never expect it. And I think after losing a leg, which is obviously something I never expected, but it's kind of proven to me firsthand that we all have these rough times and rough moments, and we get through them, and like, we're going to get through this, and we're going to get through it together. And it's just, you have to live every day. Like, I think especially right now, it's so important. You have to do what makes you happy every day, not what makes someone else happy, but there's so much going on around us, and you read the news, and it's hard not to get down on a lot of things, but at the end of the day, like, look back at your day and think about the things that make you happy and the things that you made small progress with. And it was the same after losing a leg, like, celebrating the little victories along the way.
Absolutely. No. So now you started out with skiing, and I think you in your bio on your website, it talks a little bit about some different organizations that helped you try these different types of sports and try these different experiences. Can you talk a little bit about what that journey looked like?
Yep. So skiing was kind of one of the first things I did. So it was a group called Vail Veterans Program out of Vail. They brought wounded veterans out to Colorado for a week, gave them the greatest time, taught them how to ski again, starting out, on the bunny slope. By the end of the week, you see all these wheelchairs, all these prosthetic legs at the bottom of the mountain. And talk about a powerful sight, because that means that those warriors are now up on the mountain learning how to ski again. So it's amazing.
Wow.
And then a group called Achilles, where I did my first marathon on a bike that I powered with my arms, and just the realization that, life, I can still be an athlete again. And then, eventually getting into triathlon through a group called the Challenge Athletes Foundation. That led to starting my own nonprofit called Dare to Try, getting other athletes with physical disabilities into triathlon. So there's so many organizations out there that have, helped me on my path. And I feel very fortunate to have had them on my team.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and I love how your team is continuing to evolve as you describe this, right? You get to Walter Reed and you have your fellow veterans that are also suffering, and you get to these different organizations and have additional people that you meet. That's it's a wonderful way to think of the evolution of that as change happen in our lives, right? And opportunities occur. Yeah. And I love also how you are finding a way to give back. How did your nonprofit come about? Because that is one of the things we talk about a lot too, is that you need your team, but you also need to be part of other people's teams and to pass that forward and to bring that legacy forward. So I think that's really inspiring.
Yeah. So after I lost my leg, I just did like a simple Google search of like above the knee amputees who are also women. And I would see, there was this woman who had just done an Ironman. There was this other woman who was in the Paralympics for skiing, and they're both missing a leg like I am. And I looked at them and they truly gave me hope. Yeah. So I think wanting to be that person for somebody else who maybe has just, gone through a traumatic incident, lost a limb. And back in Chicago, so I just moved from Chicago out to Colorado about a year ago. And two friends and I who have been involved in adaptive athletics their entire life, they are able-bodied, they have all their limbs, but then me as an athlete who was missing a leg, we all knew the importance of how much athletics could help a person in their life that had a disability. So starting this organization called Dare to Try, and over the past, it's been 10 years, which is kind of crazy, but we have helped grassroots up to the Paralympic level, youth, adults, injured service members, truly changed hundreds of lives, getting these athletes to the starting line, providing the adaptive equipment, the racing wheelchair, the hand cycle, helping them, get fit with a prosthetic leg or an arm, whatever it may be, and just kind of seeing them cross that finish line and just the confidence it carries over. So it's pretty incredible the lives you can change when you do something like that.
That's amazing. So as you were starting these early events, and maybe it's skiing or maybe it's that first marathon that you cycled with your arms, was there ever a time when you thought, geez, like, I don't know if I can do this? Was there any? No.
Okay.
I
was thrilled. So I think, you land in the hospital bed and I didn't know if would I walk, would I run? So being out there and doing these things, it was never I can't do this, it's too hard. It was like, let me push myself harder. I wanted to prove to myself that I still could. I loved the thrill of it. I loved the challenge of it. And it was awesome.
Well, and it probably helps coming from that athletic background, right? Where you have that focus and that drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen that with others that you've been working with? Is it sometimes a hard obstacle to get over initially, is doing something new and pushing themselves in a different way?
It is. And especially, the sport of triathlon, I think you ask someone who has, all their limbs, you're like, hey, let's go do a triathlon. They're like, oh, I could never do that. And then you take someone who's in a wheelchair and you're like, let's go do a triathlon. And they're like, you're crazy. And it's trying to convince them that they can. And if they've never been in sports, in any sort of sports before, or, push there's so much ability in a disability, and that's what we want to show people. So it's a lot of times it's just convincing them that, yes, you can do this.
And how do you do that? What are those steps that you take?
You show them, you either firsthand or you connect them to another athlete who is a triathlete with a similar disability. You do a Google search, you get them out to a practice, you put them in a racing chair and you say, now try it. And I would say 99% of the time they try it and they're like, not only can I do this, but I enjoy it and I'm actually kind of good at it. And then they go on and they do a triathlon. So yeah, it's pretty great.
Oh, that's amazing. Then that power of modeling and that power of just walking with somebody, maybe, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have someone by your side to do it with you, and that kind of changes it all.
Wow. So tell us about the journey of writing the book, because I'm so excited to read it, by the way. It's just coming out, you think August 4th, but maybe some of the pre-orders have already shipped.
They have, yeah. Somehow some of them shipped early. So I've always had on my list to kind of write a book, and I don't think I realized how daunting a process it is until I started. Yes. So it's been well over a year in the making, but writing it, finding a publisher, and then getting the finished product, which is actually right here, called The Power of Choice. And it kind of talks about my story, interweaves, all sorts of messages about how we have the power of choice in our own life.
Yes.
The goal is that the reader, puts a book down, they think about their own life, and they're inspired or motivated to maybe do something that they didn't think that they could do otherwise. So I'm super proud of it. I can't believe that I am a published author. I think you have these things that you want to check off in your life, but sometimes you think they don't actually happen, and it actually happens. So you can, they can order on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, really any major bookseller, and there will be an audiobook that comes out as well. And I can't believe it.
Oh, congratulations. I mean, that is quite its own journey, right? Quite different than the athletic journey. That's right. That's right. So tell us about your family. When did that develop in your life?
So my husband, Brian, and I, we got married a little over 5 years ago, and we kind of did things backward. We had our son, Dallas, who will be 6. So we had my son, got married, bought a house. We kind of did things, although it is 2020, there's really no correct order anymore. So we got married. My son is he's 5.5 right now. He'll start kindergarten this year. We have my daughter, Millie, who is about to be 3. And, of all the things I've done in my life, being a mom is by far my favorite and the most challenging. But I mean, the things I do they bring me so much joy. Even though can be hard sometimes, I think any parent can attest, where it's not always, rainbows and unicorns with your children, but it teaches me about myself. It challenges me. I love being a mom. So my hope is that, we had my son Dallas and then I went on to compete in the 2016 Paralympic Games. And then we had my daughter Millie after that. And the goal is to compete in Tokyo in 2021 now. And hopefully they'll all be there to cheer me on.
Oh my gosh, that's what an incredible journey. Now, is your husband military as well, or?
Nope, he is not. So very, very much a supporter of, but no, he did not serve.
No, fair enough. And neither did mine. So I think it's one of those, the unusual thing. So, I was just on a podcast the other day and was asked, and I just think this is so interesting, but I'm going to ask you the same question. How do you find that right partner that is willing to support this incredible, strong woman that's out there breaking barriers and doing incredible things?
Good question. I feel like I just hit the jackpot with Brian. It's like my dreams become his dreams. Like, he's so supportive. I mean, we lived in Chicago, have amazing friends. He had a great job there. And I had this dream of wanting to make it to Tokyo. And I kind of subtly brought up the idea of moving out to Colorado because the Olympic Training Center is here to train. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, there's no way. I can't move my whole family out to Colorado to do it. And I we one night, I didn't even say, let's do it. I just kind of brought it up. And he was the one that said, well, let's go do it. He's like, you're never going to know unless you try. And for him to say that, it was just, so we picked up and moved our entire family across. I'm gone for weeks at a time for, racing. And I'm gone, this morning I, was on my bike at 6:30 and, I feel so fortunate to have him as my life partner. He supports me. He cheers me on, and I think he's as nervous as I am on race day.
That's great. It's part of your team, right? You've got to find the right people on your team.
He's captain of the team. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So what would you say to people who are feeling frightened or maybe even paralyzed in the face of uncertainty, or in the face of maybe challenges that have come up especially in the last 3 to 5 months for some people especially? What would you say to people who are struggling in the face of an obstacle that they don't know how to overcome?
It's hard, and I think admitting that it's okay to be scared. It's okay to wonder what life will be like tomorrow or in a week or a month. There is a lot of unknown right now, and I think we're all kind of dealing with that. But I also think that you have to find a way to make to get past it as best as you can. And you can't judge anybody. You can't look at someone else's life on social media, on Instagram, and think about all the things that they're doing, but you have to do what's best for you. And I think you know, especially right now, as I mentioned it earlier, but doing things each day that make you happy, like choosing to live each day the best that you can. And whether that means, you know, taking time to sit under a tree and read a book, or go on a bike ride, or sit with your family, or just think about your life. And there's so much going on, but think about the things that you're thankful for. Like, you know, we wake up with a roof over our head. We have the means to put food on the table. You know, I personally am thankful for my family's health. I mean, it is, so you think about the things that you're thankful for instead of thinking about kind of the things that you're worried about or scared about. And I'm so confident that this will pass. I mean, I think we all thought it would be passed by now. It's not. You know, we may have a little bit longer to go, but we got to stick with it together. We all got to do our part in staying safe, and, you know, whether that's wearing a mask or choosing to stay home, whatever it may be, but doing our part. And I think the sooner we all do that, the sooner things will get back to normal, or maybe a new normal, whatever that may be.
Absolutely. So how do you define grit?
Grit. I think, to me, grit is having the heart to persevere through things that you never expect. It's, you know, obstacles come our way. They're here right now. And I think having the heart to get through them, persevering through things that you never expect, finding ways to come out even better on the other side. So, you know, I don't think anyone would have doubted me if I would have said, oh, you know, woe was me, I lost my leg. But instead it was, I chose to say, I only lost one leg. Now let's get back to living. So, you know, just choosing to accept it, to move on. And, you know, to personally, for me, it was to see how much ability was in my disability. So, you know, no, we don't all have a disability. We're not all going to, thankfully, be hit by a roadside bomb, but there are plenty of metaphorical roadside bombs in our lives. So just kind of figure out how to move past through those and end up better on the other side.
Those are great words of wisdom. Thank you so much, Melissa. And thank you for your example and your story. Would you hold your book up one more time?
Yes, happy to.
Wonderful. The Power of Choice. And then I will also be putting this up on YouTube, and I will post links to your social media as well.
Okay.
For people to follow you, and I think your story and I love seeing you coming back from the bike ride this morning on Twitter with your 2 kids and welcoming you home. That's just fantastic. So
yes.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your story.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.